it's Griffin and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm covering another true crime case, and today's case is about Ryan Shtuka. Before I get started, I do want to say if there's any misinformation or anything that I missed out on that you guys want to add, or any theories that I missed possibly, make sure to comment them down below and I will pin them to the top of the comment section. When Ryan was 18, he graduated from high school in Alberta, Canada, and he was trying to figure out what kind of path he wanted to take with his life. Instead of going to college right away, he took a year off and worked for his father to see if that was kind of the direction that he wanted to head. After spending a year doing that, he decided that wasn't really it for him, and he decided to go to college for a year. After a year of working and after a year of studying, he decided neither of those were really for him and he kind of wanted an adventure. So in December of 2017, he moved to Sun Peaks, British Columbia. He moved there with his best friend and together they worked at the Sun Peaks ski resort, and he seemed to be having the time of his life. Something you guys should know about Sun Peaks is that the population is a little over 600, but there's 900 plus non-residential homes that people rent out or they own and they come and visit during the ski season. So it's important to keep in mind that the people in and out of the town aren't always residents of the town, but visitors. On the evening of Friday, February 16th of 2018, Ryan had just finished work and decided to go to a silent disco at a local bar with just a few of his friends / roommates. After spending some time at the bar, they decided to go to a house party on Burfield Drive. People are filtering in and out of this house party, and there's roughly 30 to 50 people that could have been there over the course of the night. But by the time Ryan and his friends decided to go home, there were 9 people left, including them. Burfield Drive is just kind of your average residential area, and it was only about a 5 to 10 minute walk from Ryan's apartment. Ryan and his friends are at the house party for a while and decide to have a few drinks, and sometime between 1 to 2 a.m. they decide to leave and head home. First, one roommate decides to leave on their own and they head out, get home, and have no issue. Then 2 other roommates decided to leave, so they stood up and Ryan seemed to stand up with them, all of them heading over towards the door, Ryan getting his jacket on, so they assume that he is following them. They continued out the door, and for some reason or another, Ryan was not behind them. Maybe he had to stop and put on shoes, maybe he decided to stop and talk to someone, had to use the bathroom. Really, there's so many different things that could have stopped him from leaving with them, but no one knows. About halfway through the walk home, Ryan's friends look behind them and they realize that Ryan isn't with them. Being adults, they continue on their own, and Ryan is a 6 foot, 180 pound guy. He can fend for himself, and honestly, it's a girl and a guy. They're not going to sit there and wait in the cold streets where it's snowing. They're going to go home and wait for Ryan. And so they do just that. They get home and Ryan never shows up. They go to bed, wake up the next morning, and Ryan still isn't there, so they just kind of assumed that he had too much to drink and just ended up staying the night at the house party. He was believed to have left the party on his own and walked home. Again, only a 5-minute walk away. Ryan never made it home that night, never showed up for work later that day, and his phone and social medias were silent from that morning forward. When he didn't show up for work later that day, his friends started to get really concerned, and 7:30 p.m. rolls around and there's still no sign of him. Shortly after this, he was reported as missing. Around the same time, Ryan's mother Heather got a text from Ryan's roommate. Initially, she didn't think too much of it, but as she read it aloud to her husband, and the words just weren't making sense to him. Like, he was looking at her as if none of this was adding up and it was fate. And so she knew as soon as she said it out loud that it meant a lot more than what she had initially thought. But the text read, "Hey Heather, I don't mean to worry you, but Ryan didn't come home last night and didn't show up for work. The next day we filed a missing police report and just wanted to let you know in case they call you." His parents are obviously extremely concerned, and his mom says this isn't really like him. He's always kept in contact with his family and he was having the time of his life there. Like, everyone knew that he was in the best mental state and he was having a great time in Sun Peaks. So why is he gone? Obviously confused and concerned, Ryan's parents call his roommate. After asking him a few questions and trying to get the most answers out of him as they could, they realized they weren't getting anywhere really. They were just getting the basic statement and the basic timeline that really just wasn't adding up. So they decided to hang up and call the RCMP for themselves. The RCMP, if you don't know, is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and they're a federal level of law enforcement. According to Ryan's mom and law enforcement, they feel they never got the entire story from his friends that night. Whether or not it was because they were intoxicated or they just weren't telling the full truth. So going into the timeline a little bit, because as I was saying, it doesn't make much sense. One of the two people who had left together, thinking that Ryan was behind them, is a female roommate of Ryan's. She told law enforcement that they left at 2 a.m. that morning. But none of this adds up, and here's why. After the first roommate left, that leaves 8 people at the party. 2 other roommates left, which leaves 5 people. And then Ryan leaves, that leaves 4. Those 4 people that were left at the party sent a photo to this female roommate of Ryan's at 1:37 a.m. saying, "We are coming to yours to party." If Ryan was there, he would have A, been in the photo, B, they would have said, "We're coming back with Ryan." It just would have been such a different situation. There's no way that they left at 2 a.m. if that text was received at 1:37. So based on that, it makes me and Heather, Ryan's mom, believe that they all left around 1:35, and that's part of the reason that law enforcement and his parents are having issues trusting the friends completely, because why would you say 2 a.m. if it was 1:35? Like, there's no reason to lie about that. The 4 people that were left at the party say they don't remember him sticking around, they don't remember him saying goodbye or even leaving. And yet, when his friends looked behind them, Ryan wasn't there either. There was one witness that came forward who said they believed they saw Ryan at around 1:55 that morning, which would add up if they left around 1:35 and he were taking a longer route home or he were just leisurely walking. The only issue with this sighting of him is that this person's head was down, and the only thing that they saw that matched the description was his blue jacket. So as soon as Ryan is reported as missing, police head out to the location, but it takes them about 45 minutes to get there from their headquarters. When law enforcement got there, they had their canine units and they checked along the immediate route that Ryan would have taken home that night. The path was walking down the street in a suburb area, making a left and going through some sort of underground walkway, because on the top of it is a road where the visibility has the potential to be altered depending on the weather. This walkway was made for the workers to get to and from work safely, and after getting out of the walkway, he would have continued straight and his house would be right on the left. By the time authorities got to the scene, so much snow had fallen and it had gotten pretty dark out, so they were only able to do that immediate search, and they had to start their search over the next morning. Over 20 centimeters of snow fell that night, so there's really no telling if Ryan was there and got snowed on top of. But regardless of the snowfall, Sunday, February 18th of 2018 rolled around, and Ryan's parents and law enforcement met up around 7:30 a.m. and began their search. They searched until about 7 p.m. And while they were searching, law enforcement had asked the locals in the area to check any garages or abandoned areas or cars or anything to see if Ryan had accidentally snuck in one in the middle of the night thinking that he could fall asleep there until he woke up the next day to make it home. But nothing was found. There were thermal cameras, drones, volunteers on snowmobiles, dogs trained to find people in snowy mountainous areas, and helicopters, and again, nothing was found. After only a few days of searching and nothing being turned up, law enforcement kind of gave up, and Ryan's parents were left to search for Ryan themselves. Law enforcement told them that they had to wait until the snow thawed out because there was just no way that they were going to find Ryan in those conditions. So his parents, Heather and Scott Shtuka, got put up in a rental home for about 5 months while they continued their search for Ryan. After the 5 months, they still continue to go periodically and check up to see if they can do any sort of additional help in Ryan's case, but there hasn't been much to update on. Before the snow fully thawed out, there was one more search, and on May 7th of 2018, the Canadian Search and Disaster Dog Team came out and searched for Ryan. Unfortunately, this didn't bring up any new information. When the snow finally thawed out, authorities brought in over 40 volunteers to help search for Ryan. There was absolutely no sign that he ever left Sun Peaks. And police say that they haven't ruled out foul play, but there's no signs to indicate that there is foul play. And that's something that I think is so unfortunate in these cases. A lot of people won't cover these cases or don't like to talk about these cases or become uninterested in them because they don't know if there is foul play. But this person's life is just as important as any other person's, regardless of whether or not foul play is involved, and that's why I'm covering this case, because Ryan Shtuka's life matters. I'm sure this case has been extremely difficult for authorities, and if they at any point did think there was foul play, it would be even more difficult because the people that are in the town are mostly visitors. The locals that are there, and everyone knows everyone, but anyone else outside of those 600 plus people that live in that town are just people coming in and out of the town, and you never know where they've been, who they are, what they've done. I believe I mentioned earlier that Ryan is 6 feet and 180 pounds, but let me give you the description of what he was last seen wearing. And by the way, none of these items or his belongings have been found, but he was last seen wearing a burgundy ball cap, blue jacket, dark jeans, and a gray and white shirt. Okay, so now let's get into the theories. In this case, there is no lack of theories. There are so many, and I'm going to cover the most popular theories, but if there's any that I missed out on or any that you guys want me to touch base on, if there's an update video to do on this case, then I will make sure to include those in the next video. So make sure to comment those down below and we can have some discussion about theories as well. So the first theory is that he turned the wrong direction as soon as he left the house party. Instead of turning right out of the home, he turned left. To the left is essentially a hiking trail on the side of a mountain. There is a possibility that he could have slipped and fell because it's a very sharp edge slash cliff, and there's always that possibility, especially if there's snowfall and he's intoxicated. However, my only point to this is if that did happen, the snow has been thawed out twice at this point, and there have been many searches of that entire area, but nothing has been found, so you would think that they would have found something at this point. Unless that is he fell much further than expected and they just haven't looked in the right place yet. Another thing with this theory is that thermal cameras were brought out, but if at this point Ryan's body had been too cold, he wouldn't have the body temperature to show up on a thermal camera, so if he were covered with snow, especially that much snow, maybe they couldn't find him because the thermal camera couldn't pick him up. So there's only two reasons this possible wrong turn theory could have happened. The first one is that he was intoxicated and accidentally turned the wrong direction. The second one is that he had only been living in Sun Peaks for about 2 months and wasn't extremely familiar with the area. Maybe he got turned around and turned left instead of turning right. Based on this theory, unless he fell down the side of the mountain, he would have realized rather quickly that he wasn't headed the right direction, and he would have been able to turn right back around and head back. Snow had fallen and possibly covered his tracks, but it was a one-direction path. There was only one way he could have gone. So you would think if he did turn the wrong way that he would have found his way back rather quickly. Theory number 2 is drugs. This is kind of a theory in a lot of cases that I cover, and it's a very unfortunate theory that I personally hate getting into because I just would hate to even think of someone's life ending in this way. His mom knows that at one point in his life he tried MDMA, and it's possible that they were smoking that night. No one has come forward saying that there was any drug usage or anything along those lines, but you never know at a house party situation if someone's going to be smoking weed or not. What if this weed was laced? And he overdosed and died, and his friends got extremely worried, mostly because they were the people that gave him that weed. So they take his body and hide it and make a pact to not say anything. The third and most popular theory is the hit and run theory. There is an unsolved hit and run in that same area of Sun Peaks that happened just a few years before Ryan's case. And it is very possible that someone possibly visiting the area was driving through, accidentally hit Ryan, and didn't really know what to do because they realized he was dead. So they took his body and hid his body far away from the scene. My only confusion with this one is if there was a hit and run spot, there would be blood on the ground somewhere and the dogs would be able to trace back to that spot, unless all of his layers were so thick that his blood didn't bleed through them in time and the person got to him before that happened. There's so many things in this case that are up in the air, and with theories in particular, because there's no information, the theories are all up in the air, and it could be this, but it could be this, and it could be that. You don't really know what happened, and that's why this case is extremely frustrating. Regarding that theory, there was also a local man named Jim Reed who came forward and said he heard someone that night scream, "Get in the car." What if that was from the hit and run situation? What if the person was just frustrated and screamed, "Get in the car," as they were trying to get Ryan's body in the car? This has been followed up by authorities, and they said that they have followed up all the leads and nothing has come from them, so I'm assuming that this didn't have to do with Ryan's situation, otherwise we would have heard more of it, but that is something that I wanted to point out so that you guys knew all the information. The fourth theory is that maybe he decided to start a new life somewhere on his own. This one I truly don't believe, because if he did that, he would have all of his belongings with him. He would have taken his car, he would have taken money, he would have used his phone after that, he would have used social medias after that, at least to message people. do something. And when he was making kind of crazier decisions, like his adventurous decisions, he would tell his parents. Like, he told his parents he was going to move to Sun Peaks, so if he decided to go and change his life again, his parents wouldn't be upset with him. So why hide it? It just doesn't make sense. And the final theory that I will mention for today's video is that he is still alive and being held somewhere against his will. This is always a possible theory, and it is a very unfortunate theory to think about, but you never know. Like I said, there's a million theories, and in the end, only one will prove true. I believe that someone out there knows something, and if they came forward, Ryan could be returned home to his family. If you know anything, please call Kamloops RCMP at 250-828-3000. I will have it on the screen here below, as well as in the description box. And if I missed out on any information, please share it down below. And as always, be respectful towards Ryan and his family, and have some discussions in the comments about this case. I will be joining in on a few, so hopefully I will see you guys there and we can have some interesting discussions, maybe come up with some theories, or see if we can find any additional information together. I love you guys so much. Thank you for watching. Hopefully I will see you later, and all my social medias are linked down below, so you can also check those out. Yeah, okay, love you guys. Bye.